Whale members, and welcome to another episode of MakersPlace X Whale. Today we have the amazing honor of having Mr. LoupyD here, who is an absolute legend. I've had the honor of chatting with him a little bit before we got started here, and he has the stories to tell us about, back in the early 90s and the hip hop scene in LA. And I am so excited. So, he is a photographer, he's worked in the film industry, and he is now joining the NFT space to bring a lot of the nostalgia and the history and the memories of Tupac to the world. So, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm real excited and happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you here. I am just absolutely, I was fangirling a little bit because this is super exciting. So, I think to get us started, if you could give us a little bit of your background. I know I did an overview, but how is it that you ended up in the position that you have, for a little teaser, the images of Tupac from, his album release back in 92?
Wow. Where do I even start? Well, I guess I'll start with when I first started, being a hip hop journalist. It was in 1991. I just graduated from college, didn't have a job. I was this, struggling actor, all that. So I met a guy who started his own hip hop publication. And he said, "Hey, you want to write some articles? Here's some free music." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Free music and free shows." So it's like, "Yeah, you can come to
Yes.
the concerts and all that." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I think I can do this, but what about pay?" He's like, "Oh, you'll get paid later." I'm like, "Okay." I mean, it was fun. It's like I already, always loved taking pictures, and I've always written. So it was a real exciting time for me to get involved in, the hip hop scene in LA in the early '90s.
And that is honestly, this is one of the things that I was super excited about because talking to you about this, having the opportunity to go to shows and write about them is I just mind blowing. That's kind of the thing that I've always been super excited about. I go to concerts and I'm like, let me take all the pictures and with my phone, and so here that's the thing that you've been doing. And that's kind of the dream, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of the dream, but I didn't have a phone to take pictures with back in the day.
Well, right, but you had, and so that's, kind of the cool thing, right? Is that you didn't have a phone back the day, so you actually had a camera and you've got the film and the negatives and the proof that you were there. It's not just digital. There's a physical version to it, and kind of, it has that extra bit of nostalgia, which is amazing. You've got souvenirs of experiences that you've had.
Yeah, it's true. And let me get back into the story of like how I actually got these pictures.
Yes.
It's not what people think. Like what happened is I was in Hollywood. I had magazines, and I was like, the way I made money was by selling magazines. So he's like, "Yo, you want to make some money, sell magazines?" I'm like, all right, cool. So I took a bunch of magazines. And I was going on the street hustling, stealing the magazines, $2 a piece. And I'm in Hollywood, and I pass by this bar, and I see Tupac sitting at the bar and drinking a beer. So, it wasn't like a surprise to me to see Tupac sitting at a bar because back then, he wasn't signed. He hadn't, he hadn't blown up yet. He wasn't Tupac, you know, so to speak. So I walked up to him and said, "Yo, man, check out this magazine. Why don't you buy one from me?" He's like, "Oh, let me check it out." He gave me $2. And, he opened it up, and I sat down next to him and I showed him what articles I wrote. And we just talked a little bit about the magazine, little issues and all that. And he was like, "Yo, why don't you come to my show tonight? I'm doing a show down, Glam Slam." I was like, "Oh yeah, cool. I'll be there. Yeah, I'm coming down." So I left. And I was like, "Wow, man, I just met Pac, and he wants me to come to the show." I was like, "Oh man." So, I went and got the film and everything, the camera, and I showed up at the show and started taking pictures. Now, you might have thought, thinking like, okay, oh, he took pictures of Tupac, he's going to sell them and do all this. Like, no, I bought the camera to take pictures of Tupac to give to Tupac
Mhm.
because I was so appreciative of him buying a magazine from me. I was like, man, that was cool. he bought a magazine from me. I'm going to take some pictures of, from his first show.
Right.
It's a cool dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that.
Right, that's a cool way to engage, and the fact that people early on are making those connections in this case, for you, like, that's huge.
Yeah, like I said, the hip hop community in the early '90s, it was a small circle of people. You know, everybody knew everybody pretty much. So, there's no security guards. All these things. Everything how it is now is way different back then. It's like you can go and see these people out in the open just enjoying their lives. Like it was nothing. Um, I got there to the show that night. There was barely anybody there. It was hardly anybody there. It was an industry party. It was the record release party for 2pacalypse Now. Um, so there were a few industry people invited. Um, there were a few celebrities there, a few people, and yeah, it was a amazing night. Like usually those shows don't last very long. The artist comes out and performs. Do a few songs and they leave, or they kind of like stay around, hang out, and talk to the people, and that's how it goes down. And that's how it was that night. But like I said, I was able to like get it all on film. And I only saw one other film camera in there, and saw somebody with a video camera. And there's actual footage of the show on YouTube now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, if you Google Tupac and Glam Slam, the video will show up. And if you look at the video footage and look closely at the pictures, you can see some of the moments that I caught
Ooh,
of that concert. It's amazing. There's one
that
part where I saw in the video, I saw a flash go off in the audience. That was me.
that's what I was gonna say. I was just gonna ask him, like, since there's video, are you also in the video? But
Yeah, because the guy
your
was like,
flashes.
yeah, the guy was on the side, the stage, with the video camera. So he's like, kind of pointed towards the audience a little bit sometimes. And I was looking, I saw a flash. I was like, that had to be me. That had to be me. And I was looking for the picture, and I was like, yep, that was me.
That's so fun.
It was pretty amazing. I was like, wow. Yeah, it was amazing that whole night.
Wow, and that's, so that actually ties it in really interestingly with NFTs, right? Because kind of the thing about NFTs is that, it's a way to prove ownership or to prove, an experience because you've minted it, you've done it. And so in this case, you've got pictures that, that you took that you were there, and you've got the physical version, but you also have the secondary, like there's a video that has your flash in it, that has you, as an extra bit of proof that you were there and you've captured this experience. They've captured you capturing this experience. That's
That
that's kind of wild to think about.
is wild to think about. How you say it. But yeah, when I saw that flash, I was like, wow. It tripped me. I was like, wow, that's me.
How amazing is that? That's so fun. And so
Yeah.
you were there, and we've got I've put the link in chat for Maker's Place,
Mhm.
the story about, what it was, that you were there and they were doing this release, and, then you've got a drop that's happening too, and that's live now. So there's actually shots from this show, and I'll put that link in the chat too, so that way people can follow along because this is
Mhm.
super exciting. We've already got some bids actually. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is that not only are people, getting the NFTs or these photos, which have, in this case, we already have a bid, so this drop has just started, but there's also the negatives for the pictures as well. And that's like a super cool kind of thing because I can have the NFT and I can display that in like a digital picture frame. But you've also got these actual like framed negatives, which is so fun.
Yeah. It took me a while to like detach myself from the negatives.
Mhm.
But I thought it would be a cool thing to have as an NFT owner. When I first got the idea to do the NFT, it was last year. I don't know if you saw like the Saturday Night Live thing where they did the NFT kind of like
Yeah.
spoof or whatever they did. When I saw that, I think like maybe like 2 days later, the idea came to me like, oh, I need to make my Tupac pictures an NFT. I never published those pictures, as like I said, I took them for Tupac. So I
Mhm.
never tried, after that day, I just held on to them. They just sat in a, envelope for years up until, like I said, around 2015. We were talking earlier. I was telling you, I just start, I was working in the film industry and we'd be on set and I just start telling these stories. Or if someone would like say something or mention the artist, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that time I was with Biggie and we were talking. Wait, you who? Yeah, Biggie. You with Biggie? You talking to Biggie? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, like it's no big thing. It just
Like, yeah,
happened.
it was big. Yeah. I mean, to me, I mean, there were things that just kind of happened because the way growing up in LA, you kind of like look at celebrities as like, they're just regular people with jobs. It's
Right,
just their
because
job
there's
put
a
them
whole
in,
bunch of them there.
yeah, and their job puts them in the spotlight, so people know who you are. You know, Otherwise, they just be working just like me. So I was like, okay, you're working, I'm working. Let's do this job. My job is to interview you. You tell me what you're all about. So being that easy about it put them at ease. So it was like a lot of these celebrities like open up, and a lot of interviews, I've done are very, from the heart. They're not like kind of like cheesy. Oh, what's your favorite breakfast or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, we got real with it.
You're not
Um,
trying to ask about their Wheaties.
right. The far side, that's all they ate was cereal. Like, when I first met them, I was like, oh yeah, we eat cereal every day, all day long. I'm like, okay.
Perfect. But what we really want to know
I
is,
know, right?
yeah, like
So
that.
yeah, but yeah, these, having those negatives, is that's like the old school NFT. That's proof,
Yes.
like you said, that's proof. You can have a photograph, but photographs could be copied, it could have been given to you. But if you have the actual negative, I mean, that's proof in the pudding right there. It's like, boom, you got this. So, you know, when I initially dropped the NFTs last year, um, I didn't really have, I think I had like I was going to give a picture, but unfortunately the sale didn't go. I was really inexperienced about NFTs last year. I didn't know what I was doing. I did my job. It came and it went. I did get a lot of attention for it. A lot of things have come forward out of that. Um, but it really shocked me that I was able to re-release these NFTs, with MakersPlace. They
Yes.
saw it and they were like, wow, you really do have something here. And I was like, great. It's like, what's going on? So they invited me to the platform and kind of walked me through the process. And I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, the way we're doing it now. And, like I said, I'm just, like last year, I was really excited, like pumped, amped. Now it's more of like kind of almost like an anxiety, but it's a good anxiety. You know what I mean? It's a good,
Right.
it's because, I'm with a platform, that has a good reputation. And, just the people I worked with, showed me, it's like, wow, these guys really know what they're doing. They're very, accommodating. They walked me through the whole process and gave me some clues and things I could do and said, hey, well, it's your thing, so you can do whatever you want with it. So, I was very happy, with the way everything came out. And, all the way up until the countdown when, 3:30 hit, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? How am I feeling like this? But I was, wow.
Yeah, well, and I would say to be completely fair, if you did this,
Mhm.
with OpenSea last year, like the timing was entirely different. Like the whole market cycle and the environment was completely different. So of course, like there was a lot of that just like hype about everything, right? And like just being
Mhm.
excited and people were kind of jumping in and we saw a lot of that. And we're at a point now in, the NFT and the Web3 ecosystem where, we're more in a building phase. So getting with, MakersPlace, the people who are here to really build for the long term is something that I think is hugely beneficial. And to see you on this platform is amazing because this is, a very good place to be able to put out, you know, these messages that you have in the stories in a way that will respect the story for the long term.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. During that time in the '90s, it's really volatile time, especially particularly in LA. You had like crack cocaine, you had all this gang warfare going on. There's a lot of, I mean, there was a lot of racial tension, in recent times. Um, there was a lot of racial tension back then too. As you know, these photos are actually taken probably like, yeah, approximately 2 weeks before the LA riots.
Okay.
So a lot of the things that Tupac was saying in his music, kind of reflected the attitude and the temperature of what was going on in the city around that time. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a lot of police brutality, a lot of oppression, a lot of things going on. Um, the timing of everything coming about, like I said, the pictures taken, the riots, all those things, kind of like tied together. And it had a deep, you know, effect on me, back then.
That makes sense. Like it's impossible to be unaffected by an atmosphere that, is so strongly charged.
Yes, yes, and the riots, they kind of like, it's like the implosion point where it's like, okay, we're not going to take it anymore. Um, it sent me on a journey, like hip hop, and being a hip hop journalist was kind of like, a shelter for me, being able to hear other people's stories and, reporting on this, well, just generally new genre of music that
Yes.
everyone was starting to listen to and everybody starting to embrace. And like, we had videos and everything, coming out. Um, it was, like I said, the time and what I was doing during that time, um, like I said, affected me very deeply, and it's something that I held on to up until I retired from the journalism, like in 2003. And once I left, I left. I was like, I'm not having anything else to do with this. No more beats, no more hip hop, just acoustic music. Just I just had to take a little rest, a little retirement for a while. And like I said, I left it all behind me. I left all the pictures and the stories, and just left it behind. And like I said, it's only been within the past 5 or 6 years where I decided it's like, what, the world needs to know what it's like back in the golden era, back in the
Yes.
90s, LA hip hop, LA in general, you know what I mean? Um, and I was always taking pictures. I was like, I'm a writer, but I love taking pictures. And I used to like taking like landscapes, um, pictures of my city, so I've got decades of pictures of LA, just archived away. But just recently, I would say in the last, let me see, I'd say since about 2017, I got back into concert photography. And I've actually been working with a photography outfit and have been shooting some of the EDM concerts. Um,
Oh, those must be fun. You get a lot of at the EDM concerts, a lot of really interesting lighting too.
oh yeah, I mean lasers, fire. You get all kinds of stuff. I mean it's amazing.
Yes.
And then you have such an eclectic lineup of people, performing at shows. Not only do you have hip hop, but you have pop. You got the dance music. You got all these different genres going on. So like for the past 5 years, I've engaged myself in a lot of more concert photography. The outfit, they saw my Tupac pictures, like, oh wow, you shot Tupac? Whoa. So like, whoa, like we gotta have this guy on our team. So, I did start, shooting a little bit more, concert photography, and I still do a lot of landscape stuff and trying my hand at portraiture. So I'm just like, expanding the palette in terms of photography. And then as far as NFTs, like I said, it's a new world for me. Um, I learned a lot about blockchain technology and everything, but then the whole community aspect of NFTs and the art space. I'm like, well, hey, if I can like get my photos together and curate them and create something, that people really want to see, you know, it'll be like, all that time I was just taking pictures just for fun, it would be something that would be worth something and be meaningful, not
Right.
just to me, but to a lot of people.
Right. Well, and that's something that, as you were telling me, about how you'd taken pictures of LA, just over the last, couple decades of like seeing the evolution of the city from a viewpoint that, probably is entirely unique, because it's yours. That's something that I think people would be really interested in seeing, both people who are, native to LA and love it, like to see their city showcased, very authentically, but also, for people who have only seen it from a distance and would like to know it more. Like
Yeah.
that, there's a lot of magic in that, being able to tell those stories that way and have, that kind of relationship, where you've got the photographs over time.
Yeah, I mean, historians, educators, architects, a lot of people would love to see, old LA. Like, love to see before the subway system was put, what was there, you know, after the riots, what did it look like? What did it look like during the riots? What did it look like before the riots? I got it all documented.
Yeah, that's super amazing. Like, and I would say I'm obviously wearing my Raiders stuff. Who were in LA for a while too. Like, I've been a Raiders fan since I was a little kid, much to my dad's great disappointment, growing up in Detroit and being a Lions guy. But like, they were just the coolest. Like, I mean, you've got rock and roll, like, gangster pirates, and like that was amazing. As a little kid, like watching this team, and like they were, by far the coolest NFL
And no
team.
matter
So
where you go, it's like Raider Nation
Raider Nation's everywhere,
everywhere,
everywhere.
everywhere.
Like, they're not in LA anymore, but Vegas isn't a bad spot either. I think it
Oh,
fits.
they're hey, Raider Nation still in LA.
Raider Nation is, yes, for sure.
Wherever they go, they leave their mark.
Yes, they're, oh my goodness. And so, I'd imagine, and maybe that's part of my interest, right? Is like seeing LA in a time when they were there, and being able to see, more of that authenticity that hasn't really been documented and brought to, the photography space in this particular, storytelling. As you've got, from, I think from you, it's really interesting because here you were like doing all these zines in the hip hop scene. And so you can take that experience and kind of translate that potentially into, bringing your photos in that kind of a storytelling way.
Yeah, I mean that's what I hope to do. A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yes.
And I have thousands of pictures. So really, like I said, this is very exciting. The NFT space, it's really been a boon for a lot of digital artists. Um, you know, um, People who do physical art as well. You know, you take a picture of your art and put it on the blockchain. Um, I think it's a really, really excellent place for photography because once again, in this digital world, you know, everything can be copied so easily. You
Yes.
know, and if you're a photographer, your pictures can be taken, or if you try to sell them, people can just like get a copy of it and print it and sell it, on in and in and in. Um, Having photography in the NFT space, like you said, legitimizes your art. It's like this is what these belong to me. Here's the authenticity. Here it is. These are not copies. This is the real thing. And it really help photographers to, like I said, legitimatize their work, and have a way to do it in a way that's reputable. It's
Yes.
like this is not a copy. This is the real thing.
Yes, and in your case, you're really doubling down on that because not only is it not a copy, but you're like, and I've got the negatives to prove it.
Yeah,
Like,
I've had these photos, I've had these things appraised, and the appraisal values, you know,
yeah,
pretty remarkable on it.
significant considering, the time period and the subject and like the the absolute scarcity, the fact that like there were not many people there, and especially people with cameras, so being able to
And there
see this experience.
and there are not many pictures of Tupac performing.
Right.
Period. See him in performance. Photographs. There's not many. There's some videos. There's a lot of pictures of him. Studio. Pictures and all that. Pose and everything. But you know,
That makes
these are
sense.
very these are one of a kind. I mean, this is like him. First time as a solo artist. on stage. He's what, 21 years old. I mean,
Absolutely
you look,
groundbreaking
look, look.
stuff.
You can't see his shoes in any of these pictures, but I mean, he didn't have on the shiny Jordans. You know what I mean? He came in dressed like, like he was dressed for the day.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's just how he rolled. And he just came up and he gave an excellent performance.
That's amazing. Like, being able to see this side of him, because it makes sense, right, that there would be a lot of photos from studio sessions, because that's easier to set up your photography equipment, easier to set up, a pose, and not have to worry about, is he moving around? How's the lighting? In a venue, you have a lot more difficulty trying to capture because there's so many variables that you're not in control of. And this is something that, seeing these, action shots like that is amazing. You can see the motion because it is an action shot, and that's so fun.
Right. I mean, you like see the rafters where the lights are. you
Yes.
know, it's like, I was right there. I was like, right at the front of the stage. Boom, boom. I was all over the place. I was just from different angles, just hitting it.
Wow. That's so fun. And so, of these, I think maybe a fun question is, do you have a favorite among these shots? Or is there one that
Um,
has the best story?
let's see. I guess among these shots is the FU. I mean, it's just, I don't. It's a nice clear shot of him. He's not looking at the camera. He's looking off camera. You can see that shadow. From his finger, like shining up on at the top of the
Yes.
stage. That's from my flash. You know what I mean? It's a very detailed. I mean, look on his face. I really like that picture. So this one, and also pages and gun claps.
That
Those
was
are
the one
two.
that got called out in the Discord. People really like that one too.
Right, pages and gun claps is dope, and people always like, oh my god. The first thing is, oh my god, he's wearing a pager. Oh my, I mean, they like freak out, like that is so vintage, that is so old school. Oh my god, he's wearing a pager. And
Yes.
I was like, but look at the microphone, it has a cord on it. Oh my god.
That's
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get more vintage than that, really, though. A corded mic and a pager
that's
on the
classic.
hip. That is classic. I mean, that is an amazing picture right there. And like I said, those out of this set, those two are my favorite. Now I have two other drops coming.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I have
there's
two other
more
drops coming.
treasures. More
There's
2-pack
more
treasures.
treasures. This is just the beginning. This is just the opening. Volley right here. You know, um, Someone should get their hands on all 17.
Wow.
I mean, there's 17 shots. I call this 17 shots. 2pacalypse92. It's Tupac at 2pacalypse Now opening release party in 1992, and 17 pictures, 17 shots. I mean, this is a collection. I mean, you know, I expect like these things be in circulation for a long time, and people might have fun trading. Someone might be trying to get all 17.
Right.
I wouldn't doubt it. I had all 17. I was happy.
Well, and it
If I had one of just a 17, I'd be like, but I had 17. Well, you know.
had them. That's crazy. And people are now speculating about what else is coming, looking at this content and knowing there are more coming. Like, that is amazing. Like, to have that. And, and I'd like to go back to actually when you were explaining this FU photo, the
Mhm.
fact that it wouldn't have existed without you, not just because you're the one who took the picture, but as you said, like, the shadow happened because of your flash. Like, you created this.
Right.
And how wild is that to know
That's
that, like, this would not exist without you?
it's still hard to believe.
Like, it's interesting
It's
to think
like
about.
today, like I said, today has just been like I've just been on edge all day. Because I mean, like I said, I mean, these pictures mean a lot to me. You know what I mean? It's like I held on to them, and I held on to them out of respect. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to just like commercialize it and be like, oh, I'm just going to make some money off it real quick. You know, And then when I did decide, like, you know what, these are pictures, of Tupac. The world has to see them. They got, I can't just keep this to myself. And so I always thought, what would be the best way to display these things? I tried, I thought about doing a calendar. I was going to do, shirts, posters, whatever, all these things. And then, like, when NFTs came around, it was like, bing, it just hit me. It's like, this is how the world is going to find out about these pictures.
That
And
makes
that's how the world found out about them. I did have one, I had two live shows where I had the pictures exhibited. To see them behind me hanging on the wall. But I did two live exhibits. They were very well received at the exhibits. Um, but once I got the idea of doing NFT, and once I did the drop last year, the response I got, it overwhelmed me. I didn't think that it would go viral and be printed in just about every language in the world, reported on all these different websites and all these, it just blew my mind. I was like,
well,
wow.
that's really interesting, right? Because you were, even in like Fortune magazine, and so to be at the precipice of, this new, cultural shift with, a whole new music genre in the early 90s, you've kind of gone through that, and now you're going through this whole new like digital transformation. Like that is really, I think, an interesting thing to, always be kind of living on this edge.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in technology. I've always been interested in what's new, what's coming up, what's on the horizon. You know what I mean? I've always been interested in the future, you know, and how our lives would be changed by technology and all these things. Um, you know, um, I used to like tear apart and build computers and all that. Um, but to use it like in this, in this way, yeah, as a art form, as a way of like putting together a show and curating these things and like being able to do it digitally and like getting it shown all around the world in a split second. That's just so amazing to me. And that's why I'm really proud and so impressed by all these artists, all these NFT artists, who've come forth and the stuff they're creating. These visual masterpieces are just mind blowing. You know what I mean? And then these photographers who are coming with pictures. It's amazing. It's utterly incredible. I'm really excited, like I said, about the space, and the whole genre and everything about it. The technological advances, that help everyone like produce art and you know sell it, display it, treasure it, honor it. It's everything. It's amazing.
It really is amazing, and it's super amazing to think about, this progression from, when you're doing the zines and you were kind of capturing the culture in that way to now moving it into the digital space and bringing back that nostalgia and those memories and making sure that they persist, and are able to be experienced not only by the people who were there and kind of trying to reminisce on it, but the people who are looking back and going like, man, I wish I was there. Like these are the people who have inspired the people that I listen to now. So how do I get in touch with that? Like this is a great answer to that question.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's definitely a way to bridge the gap. You know, between musical generations and genres and everything. Yeah, like I said, I'm really happy to be able to bring this and show this to people. It just it's amazing how many people are still impressed and inspired by Tupac. You know,
Yes.
I was a teacher for a while. I was like a substitute teacher. I used to bring the photographs to my class. And I tell the kids, I'm like, hey kids, who wants to see pictures of Tupac? And they'd be like, I do.
Right.
Okay. Everyone who finishes their work gets to see the book. And every time I get everyone to finish their work.
That's a good motivation. Like I would do whatever needed to be done to get to see.
Oh yeah, man. And but like I said, it's like the impact that Tupac had on the youth, on younger generation. I was a substitute teacher like in the late '90s, early 2000s. So
Yeah, so it's
uh,
still real fresh and oh my goodness, being able to see. how much he had impacted the scene, not just locally but globally. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. But I always tell the kids like, it's like it's cool to admire these artists and everything, but it's like, be yourself, do your own thing. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, show us yourself. Express yourself. Don't try to be like somebody else. Just be you. That's all these people did, and you're just copying off of them. Have somebody copy off of you. You know, you be the star. And I'm sure some of these kids took that advice, and they're the stars now. They probably seen these pictures like, hey, okay, and they're doing a thing. I don't know. I was a substitute for like 15 years.
I'm sure that you inspired a whole bunch of the youth during, like, 15 years is a lot of time to be really putting, an impression on people, and it sounds like you're doing it in a way that was really inspirational and not just like, oh, get your stuff done. Like, you're showing them like the real world, like, here's things that you can accomplish, like stuff that you can, get out there and experience. Not just, could you go and be Tupac, but could you go and be LoupyD and take the pictures and, engage with the artist? Like, that is
Yeah, I
something
would
that
tell them.
I'm sure a lot of kids were like looking to go to, how can I be you?
I was like, tell your stories. That's all I do. All I do is I go out and I take pictures and I ask questions. You guys do the same thing, and it's going to count. It's going to count for somebody like later on. Down the road, you're going to appreciate, what you did, documenting, yourself during these times and talking to other people and documenting all these things that are happening during those sciences. Those times are going to pass, and you're gonna look back and be like, wow, look what I did. And somebody else may like, hey, look what you did. I would like, take part of that. Like, I'd like to see that, like show it to somebody else. Everybody has a story to tell. Everyone is important. Everyone has, you know, a contribution to make to this earth. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have to make a contribution to this earth. You know what I mean?
This is absolutely true. Such good
So
advice.
yeah, I mean, I would tell these kids like, hey, find something you like and just go for it. If I caught a kid drawing in class, like, hey, you draw? You're supposed to be doing work. You're drawing. What's going on? Oh, it's like, okay, I'll tell you what. Go ahead and finish your drawing. Do the work for homework.
Do the
You
things that
know,
inspire you, because a
do
lot
the
of
things that inspire
times,
you.
like, that's the stuff that'll get you further. It's
Yeah. A
busy
lot of
work
times,
is,
busy
all
work is
right,
busy
but
work. It'll keep you busy. But if you want to have a life, do something that keeps you alive. You know,
yes,
have a livelihood.
that is perfect. So you're totally my kind of guy, because that is the perfect advice for getting people to go out and make a difference in the world and really engage instead of just kind of, drag through day by day. Like, that's what gets people alive, makes them want to keep doing cool stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, Tupac was never one to be idle. He was always inspiring people, not only with his music, but with his words, with his acting. You know, just the way he presented himself when he wasn't being antagonized. He was always telling people like, do your best. Work for yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's like, self education. Is the best education.
That it is. And I think that's, maybe even more emphasized by the time in which he was putting out those messages, because you really had to make sure that you were focusing on yourself, because that's all you could control. And you needed to really make sure that what you're putting out to the world was your best, because if you weren't putting it out, like, other people weren't going to do it for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, during those times, there was a lot, like I said, there was a lot of negativity. There was not a lot of like positive influences for a lot of young black men. It's like you had a lot of, like I said, like gangs and drugs. You know what I mean? Um, the inner cities, jobs have been, they weren't there. There's nothing to do. There's no inspiration. There's no nothing. You know, Hip hop during that time was all about, self motivating and becoming self sufficient. You know, just about all the rappers had it, in some form or fashion in their songs. So that was a very revolutionary time for a lot of people. They started to stand up for themselves and start to do, their own things. A lot of entrepreneurs, started like, find all kind of businesses to start. You know, a lot of people were becoming self-sufficient, and it was like a great time. And I see it even more so now because now, like I said, technology changing. A lot more people have tools in order to be self-sufficient. You know, I mean, it's like so many things you can do. You can like start some online business, you can do anything. You know, now there's nothing stopping anyone from, making a living doing anything they want to do. You know, as
Exactly.
long as
Yeah.
they have the will, they have the will to go for it, just go for it and do it. You know,
Take your
and that's kinda
passions and
like
run with them.
exactly, and that's kind of like what Tupac stood for. I mean, he stood for like self-sufficiency. Do it for yourself. Forget what everybody else says. Just do it. Do your thing.
And here you are doing your thing and bringing these photos to the blockchain, which is
Yes.
absolutely amazing. Being able to
Yes.
see them, share them with the world. And so that's something that you said there are going to be more as well coming out. But right now we're focusing on the first of the 2pacalypse92 17 shots drop.
Yep. It's the first six. The first six in the drop. There'll be a second drop with another six coming out, and then there'll be a final drop with five.
Wow. So that'll be exciting to be able to watch that progression as well.
Mhm.
And so we've got these. And do we have information about how long the strap is open? I know we're accepting offers and kind of waiting to see. So if we click on one,
Yeah. Well, once the reserve is met,
okay,
the clock counts down 24 hours. So as far as I know, one photo has met the reserve, and so the clock has started.
yes, the FU has
The FU has yes.
currently. There we go. Yeah, so that one has 21 hours to go.
So we got 21 hours on that, folks. Make an offer.
Yes. And all the others too, because this is amazing hip hop history. Like you've got history and negatives.
Yes, this is. I mean, it doesn't get any more historical than this. I mean, the
Right.
negatives. Um,
Wow.
like I said, it was hard. it was it was hard. Letting go.
That's big to let go of for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, the proud owner is going to be so happy. I mean, I
Exactly.
kept these things. They're just locked away for decades, almost what 3 decades.
Yeah, and
You
being able
know,
to share them with the world, like that's so cool. Wow.
looking at them now, I'm like,
Right? But you've got the pictures on your wall too, so you've got that. Like,
yep,
you
I
got the
got the picture.
memory. Like, you were there, you did the thing. This is
Yeah,
as close as
absolutely.
anybody else could get because you
That's
did the
that's
thing.
that's the one thing I have that I can't let go of is the story,
Mhm.
the experience of like being there, the experience of talking to him. I talked to him two other times after that show. I wish that if I had a phone, I would have shown him the photos right then and there.
Right.
But both times I saw him, I didn't have the photos on me. Once it was in LA, and another time was in Atlanta. And we just said, "Hey, what's up?" He bought another magazine from me in Atlanta, and I saw him there. And yeah, after that, I didn't see him anymore. His
Wow.
career kind of like just skyrocketed after that point. After
Right.
yeah, pretty much after summer of '92's last I saw him.
That's,
So
that's when it all took off, huh?
yeah, took off for him, and
Wow.
he went one way, I went another way, and here we are again.
Here we are indeed. And how
Hmm.
exciting. So let me share this link in the chat again for everybody who's following along because this is super cool. And like, what a neat thing to be able to have a piece of history because that's what it is.
That's
Uh,
exactly what it is.
so you have a whole piece of history in Tupac, the first launch, the first album
Yes.
launch with LoupyD here as the photographer, which is absolutely fabulous. Like these are amazing, and having a slab negative, like that's a super badass thing to have on display at your house.
Oh yeah.
Man,
Yeah. Like I said, these photos, these NFTs, they are going down in history for sure. Like I said, I got a lot of attention last year. It going viral, and so I'm working with a few other entities. um, in terms of marketing these pictures, or like, raising awareness about these pictures. Um, their historical significance. Um, don't be surprised if you see them on television soon.
Perfect.
Um, you know, so that, once again, that adds more value, to the actual, photographs themselves. Um, because other people are seeing the value in it and also want to like use it to illustrate, Tupac's stand um, in this world while he lived.
And these are so fun, like seeing him in action, like a live show.
Hmm.
You can see the very standard concert progression of more clothes to less clothes. Here he's got a jacket, then he's got a jersey, and now
Hmm.
he's down to just an
He's like,
undershirt. Like he's, this
like,
is something that if you go to shows, like this is a thing. And here you've got the actual like action shot of him losing the jersey. So
right.
you know,
Like, here we go.
for those who are concert goers, you'll know exactly what's happening here because this is a thing that
Right.
happens at most shows. And so that's fun to see that progression as well. Like you've got so many stories that are happening in each individual shot and throughout the collection, and that's something that I think people are really going to value seeing. So
Oh yeah, there's more where that came from too. Wait till you see, the next drop. Gonna be some more jewels. Some
perfect.
more. You like these? You're gonna love the next set.
Perfect. So for everybody who's hanging out, make sure you're following along too. I'm gonna post to Twitter again. Make sure that people are hitting you with the follow so that way they can keep an eye. The Instagram too. Keep an eye when you are posting new content, new
Mm.
drops. And let's see. You got your
Oh, was that
Linktr
on
too.
Twitter? Can you go back to that Twitter page?
I can go back to that Twitter
The
page.
Twitter. Yeah. So the three images at the top next to
These
my
ones.
profile picture. Yeah. So those were done by um, a graphic artist in France. We met here in LA, and our spirits kind of connected. I kind of got a glimpse into what hip hop was like in France. And so we bonded, and I was like, "Hey, how would you like to do something with these pictures?" And she was like, "Okay." And this is what she came up with. I mean,
Wow.
these amazing, 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 you know, um, graphic arts. And so, yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that. Ego is the name of the artist,
Oh,
and
perfect.
she's blown up in France right now. She's amazing artist, graphic artist, NFT artist. She has stuff going out now. Um, you're going to be seeing more of her in the future. I guarantee it. But
Perfect. Yeah, these are so fun. And so you and I were talking actually before the stream started because I live in Cleveland and so I spend a lot of time at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And
mhm.
these are like seem like such throwback type images, like with just the way the graphic art is laid out, with the text and kind of the overlays, and it feels very vintage, and even though it's not, it's
It's
amazing.
modern. Yeah,
It is. It's modern vintage, and
it's
that's
modern, but you
so
look at it.
good.
I mean, that is so old school.
It
I mean,
is.
the graphics, the messages, she's putting out there. It's old school, and that was so amazing and impressive to me about her art, was that she was able to take these old school images and bring them to the foreground, but still embody the same values and things he's talking about back then. And she just brought it to the future, and I'm
She
just
has
like utterly
captured the
impressed by that.
spirit for sure.
Yeah, you know. So that was a great collaboration. We were able to um, put together with these pictures.
That's fun. So what you're telling us is there is potential for more LoupyD collaborations as well.
There's potential. Yes, yes.
As we're seeing
This
your
is not a one
photos
time
moving.
thing. This is not a one time thing. Trust me. Like I said, great art, comes through great inspiration. And Tupac was definitely a great inspiration for me, and obviously Ego, the artist, and a lot of other people, the collectors who will be purchasing these, NFTs and along with the negatives. You know, I'm it's no words.
Yes.
This is a very special time right now.
How exciting.
Yeah, it's very amazing. Like I say, you keep bringing stuff up, and I look at it, and I'm just, awed that I'm in this position, and these pictures are, you know, just being now they're really being shown. People are really starting to see and look at Tupac in a way he hasn't been seen before.
Right.
Fresh. You know, fresh.
And you are bringing that to the world. Like that's the coolest part, right? That like this would not be here if not for you. So here you are bringing a new view of Tupac to the world. And
Yes,
that's so
I mean,
cool.
people seen the thug life. You know, they've seen all different sides of Pac, but rare few people have seen this side of Pac.
Yeah. How
Very rare.
amazing. He was just
For
being himself,
everyone.
rocking the show.
Being himself, rocking the show, and he rocked it too. He did a great job. I mean, he, he just walked back and forth. He had the whole thing choreographed. He had planned. He gave out roses to the women in the audience. He was ready. He was ready.
I imagine that would make for some good photos too with the roses and the women.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So
Now,
much
so
fun
there,
history.
yeah. I mean, there are other pictures on the negative strip. Kind of like behind the scenes pictures.
Mhm.
But I wanted to highlight the Tupac photos.
Right.
Um, so at least I have the backstage pictures for posterity, or who knows, there might be another drop. Who knows? Maybe somebody want those pictures as well.
Some more
But
stories to tell.
it's more stories to tell. Yeah, it's definitely background to it. But
How
yeah, I think what we got here is pure platinum.
it really is. And I like how you've got the description, like explaining what was happening. So here as we discussed, here he was removing his jersey because the second half of the
Hmm.
show is about to begin. So like
That's
you
right.
can really see the progression. That's
Hmm.
something I'll be honest, I didn't read the description before I made the comment about it out, but like, as somebody who frequently attends events, like you would expect that to be a thing. And here you've captured it being a thing. And that is so fun.
Hmm.
You
Yeah, I
sell
mean, you bring
headband
it up.
too.
It's like, wow, that's so true.
It really is. Like it's a
It's like,
thing.
here's that part of the show. Here's a picture of it. Yeah, it's like,
Exactly. Well, and it's funny because I know like I'll go to shows and I'll take a lot of pictures and like I, throw them all in a file on my computer. And
mhm.
then I like look at them later and go, well, it's the beginning or the end of the show. I'm like, let's see what they're, that's kind of a way to gauge like what time it happened without looking at the photo timestamps. Like, what
Right.
was the
Like, oh, okay,
progression of
he had a
how they
shirt on
looking?
here and he didn't have a shirt on there. Okay.
Yep. How
This
disheveled
happened
are they looking as the night goes on?
first.
That's the thing for sure. And that's something that, you've done such a great job of capturing that, you know,
Well, thank you.
this whole story. So that's amazing. And I am super honored to have had the opportunity to talk with you about this because this is huge, for fans of Pac and for fans of hip hop and, just being able to see, these types of scenes, from the culture, like that's amazing. And so thank you for bringing this to the world.
Yes, my pleasure. Pleasure. Thank you for having me on to share with everyone. I'm really happy to, be able to do this.
Good. And I am looking forward to not only this drop and cheering you on and supporting this as it goes, but also, you're continuing in the Web3 space and bringing the rest of these stories to the blockchain because that is going to be, I think, super exciting for people to be able to follow along and see, knowing that you are a storyteller and you came from the zine space in the 90s, like that sets you up to be, an amazing Web3 storyteller as well. And I'm really looking forward to see what you've got for us.
I'm looking forward to see what I got for y'all too.
Perfect. It'll be an adventure. It's fun
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you lived it one time around and now you get to go back and revisit and see like, oh my goodness, like how do I, relive this
Right.
and portray that to the rest of the world.
Totally. Yeah. That's the exciting part about it. It's like getting to relive it and retell it and just, bring back those memories and share it with everyone.
Very exciting. Well, I know we're a little bit over time, so I don't want to hold you, but I really appreciate you joining us today and Maker's Place for helping to bring this to life because this is really exciting. And I'm really glad that the Whale members have had an opportunity to hear your stories and see this art that you've put out for us because this is huge and super memorable and something that is really like a unique opportunity because not only is it the NFT, but you've got a physical, I know they called it digital here, but it's like this is history, a piece of history, and so that's super special. So thank you so much for your time and to the whale members for joining today, and we will see you all later, and we'll follow along LoupyD for all of the adventures that you're going to take us on.
All right. All
Have a
right.
great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, our honor.